Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys another update to my Dark Lunalight deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we are of course playing with our Lunalight monsters, and I like to play one copy of Lunalight White Rabbit. Now the reason why I only play one copy of her is because you want to see her mid to late game. You never really want to see her in your opening hand because, well, you're not going to have any Lunalight monsters in your graveyard for her to fully utilize her revival effect. Now her revival effect is great for putting additional bodies on the field for your fusion plays, but more importantly, it gives you extra bodies to go for your link plays as well. She's actually one of the best facilitators in this deck for your link summons because her summon essentially counts as 2 monsters on your side of the field, which is fantastic. She also has the built-in ability to bounce back row that your opponent may have set, which is great for just clearing the way in general for your plays. Now, next off, we're also playing 3 copies of Lunalight Black Sheep, and with that, we are also playing 3 copies of Lunalight Kaleido Chick. Now, this is like the bread and butter of your deck, right? Your Black Sheep searches Palmization, Kaleido Chick adds it back from your graveyard to your hand, and of course, Black Sheep can help you recover monsters that you use as fusion material as well. So that is definitely fantastic for generating advantage and adding cards back from your graveyard to your hand, so you can, use them in your in terms of furthering your plays and combos. Now we're also playing 1 copy of Lunalight Blue Cat and 1 copy of Lunalight Crimson Fox. Now I'm only playing 1 copy of each of these. I wouldn't recommend cutting them entirely, and I wouldn't recommend playing more, mostly because of the fact that you never want to draw into them. You just want to send them to the graveyard with your Kaleido Chick. Now Blue Cat, if you've watched my recent stream, you would know that Blue Cat can save lives. Just a single copy of Blue Cat in conjunction with like your Lunalight Tiger inside your main deck, you can end up blocking 4 different attacks from your opponent, which is great for surviving OTKs that your opponent might have set up for you. And then the 1 copy of Crimson Fox is great for targeting protection, but also sometimes you just want to make your opponent's monster attack 0, so you can use her as a fusion material in order to accomplish that. But yeah, these cards as a tech, I never really miss them, at higher numbers, but I feel like just having 1 copy as a tech for each of these is just really great for giving you more options, giving you versatility in your builds. Okay, so that does it for the main deck Lunalight monsters that aren't pendulums. So next off, for the pendulums, we have 3 copies of Lunalight Tiger, there we go, and 1 copy of Lunalight Wolf. Now, these cards, very self-explanatory. Lunalight Tiger is the best Lunalight monster in the deck, in my opinion, because the fact that you can just use her over and over, especially with cards like Zephyros, you can keep bouncing her from the field to your hand, you can reuse her effect, you can pop her with your own Link monsters or your own XYZs or whatever you're playing in your deck, and you can easily just continue reviving more and more monsters from your graveyard and fuel your board to go for higher linked monsters or even potentially a bigger fusion monsters as well. Speaking of fusion monsters, we have 1 copy of Lunalight Wolf, and that Lunalight Wolf is only run at 1 because you never really use it unless you're going for game, and if you are going for game, she is really easily accessible because you can send her to the graveyard with Kaleido Chick and add it back with Black Sheep, or you could just outright search it with something like your Lunalight Perfume. So I never really missed it at higher numbers. I feel like 1 copy is way more than enough. You just need access to it in those desperate situations where you just need a big monster like Panther or Leo Dancer to help you swing for game. So that's why I run 3 copies of Tiger, 1 copy of Wolf. So that does it for all of the Lunalight monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the Dark Engine that we play. So for the Dark Engine, we're playing 2 copies of Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is, of course, here to tutor out your copy of Armageddon Knight. And Armageddon Knight is here to send your Zephyros from your deck to your graveyard. No need for any of those, Raid Raptor Force Tricks shenanigans. Yeah, that's completely unnecessary in this build. So Summoner Monk into Armageddon Knight into Zephyros is actually great because Zephyros, as I explained earlier, can help you bounce back things like your Lunalight Tiger in your pendulum scale. Now, something else that you can use your Zephyros for is you can bounce back whatever Lunalight Tiger revives from your graveyard. So let's say you revive a Black Sheep from your graveyard, you can bounce that Black Sheep back to your hand with Zephyros, and then use that Black Sheep's effect to search out something like a Palmization or Fusion Substitute, which is actually a really key card in terms of the combo that you need in order to establish both Drago's Depelia and Evil Swarm Nightmare on your side of the field turn 1. Without that Palmization, of course, you can't fuse for that Drago's Stepelia. So this engine is actually really versatile, and of course, if you draw into your other copy of Summoner Monk and you've already used Armageddonite, you can always tutor out something like your Kaleido Chick or even a Blue Cat if you really needed to boost the attack of something you have on your field. It's just a really versatile card in general. Okay, so that does it for the Dark engine. Next up, for the Predaplant engine, we're playing 3 copies of Predaplant Orphis Scorpio. Now, of course, Scorpio's here to tutor out your 1 copy of Darlingtonia Cobra from your deck, and Cobra's here to help you tutor out your fusion spells, namely Brilliant Fusion, and if you already have a copy of that, your Polymerization or Fusion Substitute as well. Now, for your Brilliant Fusion, you're summoning Geminite Seraphinite off of it, which means you need light targets. So I play 1 copy of Performance Trick Clown. You can, of course, send your Lunalight Tiger or your Lunalight Wolf if your Trick Clown's already out of the deck, if you've already drawn into it, or if it's, you know, in circulation somehow. You can always just tutor out your Wolf or your Tiger by dumping them to the graveyard as well. But Trick Clown's really important in this build because of the fact that it's a Spellcaster type monster, and it puts another body on the field for you to, you know, go for your higher linked combos, but I'll explain why the Spellcaster type matters on the Trick Clown once we get into the extra deck. But for now, just know that Trick Clown's actually a really essential part of the main combo that you need in this deck. Now, next off we play, of course, any Geminite monster that you want. I prefer playing Geminite Garnet because it has 1900 attack, and you can use it as a beat stick against your opponent's monsters if you're unlucky enough to draw into it, which hopefully you're not, but hey, it's always an option that you have to consider for. So that's going to be it for the Predaplant engine. Next off, we're going to go into some of the hand traps. So for the hand traps, we were only playing 3 of them. We were playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now this is kind of flexible depending on your local or regional meta. You can always substitute this for Ghost Ogre, Ghost Spell, Effect Veiler, Drone Lockbird, whatever you feel like is necessary to combat the decks that you most often play against. But as a generic placeholder, Ash Blossom hits almost everything that's relevant right now, so just having 3 copies of it I feel is, well, fantastic. Okay, so that does it for all of the monsters in this deck. Next off, we're going to go into the spell cards. Alright guys, so for the spell cards, starting off, we are of course playing 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. Now Tenki is here as a searcher for the deck. You can search any of your missing Lunalight monsters, except for Lunalight Wolf, because its level's too high, and it's basically a replacement for any of your missing combo pieces. You could just tutor them out straight from your deck. Now I'm also playing 2 copies of Polymerization here with 1 copy of Fusion Substitute. I really prefer the 2-to-1 ratio of this. Some people just like playing 3 copies of Polymerization, but that Fusion Substitute's extra draw effect is actually so powerful. Getting that 1 extra card, which might not seem like a lot, but every little thing counts when you're a combo deck. And also it gives you the ability to go for your follow-up turns as well. So if you have Fusion Substitute in your graveyard, you can of course put back things like your Geminite Seraphinite, which you can't even summon anymore, back into your extra deck just to get that extra draw, potentially drawn to that extra monster that you might need in order to facilitate the OTK on your subsequent turns, right, with your Panther Dancer or even potentially a Leo Dancer. So that's why I really like having the 2-to-1 ratio here. So the next fusion card that I play in this deck is of course going to be 3 copies of Brilliant Fusion. This is to tutor out the Seraphinite from your extra deck with your Performance Trick Clown, your Geminite Garnet. So that's why it's here. Searchable by Darlingtonia Cobra, of course. And yeah, that does it for these power spells, I guess I should put it. And then next off, we're going to go into the text, the more revival and supporting spells. So the supporting spells, starting off, we have 3 copies of Lunalight Perfume. Lunalight Perfume is basically a monster reborn with a built-in searching effect in the graveyard, which is fantastic. Now, Lunalight Tiger is actually really crucial to a lot of the plays that we do, but you can replace Lunalight Tiger with something like your Lunalight Perfume because of the fact that Tiger is really just used for the revival effect. We also have a monster reborn, and we also play a copy of Soul Charge as well, just to act as extra potential cards that mimic what Lunalight Tiger does. Now, of course, you can't bounce these with Zephyros, but they do help you set up, especially Lunalight Perfume, help you set up your initial board, and then you can search for that Tiger by banishing the Perfume and discarding a card and tutoring her out from your deck. Now, Perfume's also a great discard card for your Summoner Monk, just sets it up in your graveyard so you can go for an easy search. Same thing with Polymerization as well. If you pitch it with your Summoner Monk and your Armageddonite sends something like Kaleido Chick, you can add that Polymerization from your graveyard back to your hand. So that's an option that you can always go for and to just have in the back of your mind to consider. Now, wrapping up the spell cards, we also play 2 copies of Called by the Grave. Because this is a combo-oriented deck, you don't want your opponent's hand traps interrupting your plays, especially because this deck is really fragile, right? Predaplants are a very high-risk, high-reward type of deck, type of engine to be playing. So Called by the Grave is just there to help you ensure that your plays go through and you don't just get stopped by a single Ash Blossom. Okay, so that does it for the main deck. Next off, we're gonna go into the extra deck. Alright guys, so for the extra deck, starting off with our more generic Link monsters, we are playing 1 copy of Wee Witch's Apprentice, which only requires 2 dark monsters. Now, Wee Witch's Apprentice is actually very important in this deck because the fact that it's a dark spellcaster type monster. The spellcaster attribute, type actually matters here because the fact that you can use her with your Trick Clown to go into your Summon Sorceress, which is a huge power card in this deck for establishing your Evil Sworn Nightmare to your side of the field. Now, normally you'd be summoning your Wee Witch's Apprentice with something like your Predaplant Scorpio and your Darlingtonia Cobra, right? So you would use those 2 to link into your Wee Witch's Apprentice before going ahead and activating Brilliant Fusion and putting Seraphonite onto your side of the field into one of the markers that Apprentice points to. And then the Trick Clown that you summon off of being sent from the Brilliant Fusion, you can use to link with this Apprentice and go for your Summon Sorceress play. So essentially, your Predaplant engine facilitates the Summon Sorceress, which is a huge power play, and it just so happens to, synergize really well with Apprentice right here because both the Predaplants that you use for the engine are darks. Okay, so next off, we also play 1 copy of Firefighting Darumidal. This card has been very iffy for me because it comes up some duels, it doesn't come up in other duels, and I've tried substituting this with something like Trispana, tried swapping it out for Lightsworn Curious, right? And I just keep coming back to this card because it's so good at facilitating plays with the deck. So if, for example, you have your White Rabbit, you can normal summon White Rabbit, bring something else back, go for your Firefighting Darumidal. Now, if you have a Lunalight Tiger as well, you can revive something off Tiger, then you can pop your Tiger, pop one of your opponent's back rows, and revive another monster. So with just a Lunalight White Rabbit and your Lunalight Tiger, you now have an access to a Link 4 monster, which in most cases could be something like a Boral Sword or a Borolo Dragon. So those cards are really powerful cards to be able to just pull out of nowhere, right? And the easiest way Lunalights do that is through Darumidal, because you can pop your Lunalight Tiger and get advantage off of it. It's also really nice because you have a lot of cloggy back row, right? You have your Brilliant Fusions, your Tenkies. These continuous spell cards just kind of sit there and take up space, and you always want to make sure both your pendulum zones are open for your use, of course, with your scales of Lunalight Tiger and Lunalight Wolf. So you really only have 3 spell and trap zones that are open for you to use, and Darumidal just kind of clears out any of the unnecessary clutter, especially if your opponent's playing a lot of back row, right? So Darumidal is actually pretty useful in some of those situations, but it doesn't come up every duel, and if you really want to substitute something out, this is probably one of the first cards you would consider cutting. Okay, so next off, we're playing the Nightmare engine, so Nightmare package, I should say. 1 copy of Cerberus, 1 copy of Phoenix, and 1 copy of Unicorn. Now, these cards are just here as generic spot removal for your opponent's cards. Now, the reason why Darumidal isn't as good as Phoenix is because Phoenix doesn't require you to pop your own spell and trap cards, so sometimes Darumidal puts you in that situation where you're like, I need to destroy something, but I also don't have anything of mine that I want to destroy either. That's where Nightmare Phoenix can come in. Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn, again, just generic spot removal, and it can also get some dead cards in your hand into your graveyard. For example, if you drew into your Trick Clowns, drew into your Zephyros, or drew into extra Lunalight monsters that you can't normal summon that turn because you already used it, the Nightmares can really easily put those cards into your graveyard for you to start using their effects from there. Okay, so that does it for the generic Link monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the higher Link monsters that require a bit more effort in order to summon. So we're only playing 2 of those actually, 1 copy of Summon Sorceress and 1 copy of Borolo Dragon. I've already explained how we can easily tutor both of these out from the deck. Summon Sorceress, of course, is with your Apprentice and your Trick Clown. You can also use Summoner Monk as well because it's a spellcaster type monster, which is why I play 2 copies of it. And then Borolo Dragon, I explained earlier, you can easily summon this card with your White Rabbit and your Lunalight Tiger with the help of Darumidal. So this card is really easily accessible, especially on subsequent turns, because if you have something something like an apprentice that just stays alive, or you know, you have multiple Lunalight tigers or perfumes or whatever, you can easily tutor out a boar load. Your Predaplants can also help this as well. You know, Predaplant, Scorpio, and then a Cobra, and then your Brilliant Fusion summons a Seraphinite, and that puts a Trick Clown on board. That's 4 monsters for you to easily go for a Boarload Dragon if, you know, you're just really under pressure and you got to get rid of your opponent's monster or you just want to steal it. That's an easy way to tutor it out from your deck. But just having it, especially if your opponent summons their own Boarload against you, this card is just way too good, right? You can steal theirs, steal additional monsters. Really, really powerful. Alright, so that does it for our Link monsters. Next off we have our 1XYZ and then a ton of fusion monsters. So starting off, we're playing 1 copy of Evil Swarm Nightmare. Now Evil Swarm Nightmare, 2 dark monsters, 2 level 4 dark monsters to summon it, and it's not once per turn, so you can flip multiple of your opponent's special summon monsters face down. Especially if they go for something that's not a Link monster in their extra monster zone, you can flip that face down and then you just lock them out of their extra monster zone, which is fantastic. At least for the turn. So Evil Swarm Nightmare with your Dragostapelia is your most ideal first turn board, and so of course you're going to be playing one of these. I don't play any other rank 4s. You could if you wanted to, but again, this extra deck space is really tight because we're playing the Brilliant Engine. We're playing so many Link monsters that we need in order to go for our combo plays that there's really no space for anything else. Now, speaking of our combo plays, we're playing 1 copy of Gemnite Seraphinite to start off our fusions. Of course, grants that additional normal summon, puts that Trick Clown in the graveyard, just fantastic overall. We're playing 1 copy of Predaplant Dragostapelia. Like I mentioned earlier, you want to summon it alongside of your Evil Swarm Nightmare for you to get that disruption on board so you can hinder your opponent's turn. And we're also playing 1 copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. Now, originally I cut this card when I was playtesting, but oh my god, there's so many times where a Starving Venom could have easily sealed the deal, but because I didn't play it, duels dragged on, and opponents with giant beat sticks are really hard to get over for this deck, occasionally. Especially if you can't get into like your generic like Lunalight fusions, just having something like a Starving Venom that's really easily accessible, because of course Predaplants are dark, your dark engines are all dark, Summoner Monk, Armageddonite, Zephyros. It's just so easy for this deck to tutor out that there's no reason not to play this card. So I prefer playing it, and I ended up actually having to cut one of my Lunalight fusions or to fit it in. Talking about the Lunalight fusions, we're playing 2 copies of Lunalight Cat Dancer, of course, because she's the most basic level for climbing into the other ones as well. You don't really want to play 1 because that's just way too risky, just in case something happens to your first copy and you can't get into your other Lunalight fusions. We're playing 1 copy of Lunalight Panther Dancer, which normally I play 2 copies of, but I ended up cutting 1 for that Starving Venom, because Starving Venom is just so much more easily accessible and still facilitates a lot of damage output, so that's why I made that replacement. Now, this deck does play a lot towards its Link monsters and Link summoning, which is why I ended up, you know, kind of cutting the Panther. The second Panther almost never came up in most of my duels, and having that fusion substitute, again, being able to put back the Panther in case I did send it off of something like Kaleido Chick was just a huge help in order to help facilitate something like a Leo Dancer out. So I never really missed the second copy of Panther Dancer, but if you feel like this is too risky, you can of course cut something like your Daruma Doll and you can put in your second copy of Panther Dancer, but from my testing, this has actually worked out pretty well because you don't always have reliable access to your polymerization in this build. So yeah, anyway, that does it for the extra deck, and that does it for this deck profile. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.